The text arrived at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday that already felt cursed. I'd been awake for 3 hours, watching Mrs. Chen's security camera footage on my phone for the 5th time. The same loop. Mr. Rossi's nephew pulling a gun in our lobby. The shouting. The blood on the marble tiles that our super still hadn't cleaned. My hands trembled as I typed, the blue glow of my screen illuminating the dark circles under my eyes. The radiator in the corner clanked and hissed, losing its nightly battle against October's chill that crept through the thin walls of my 6th-floor walk-up. I tucked my cardigan tighter and scrolled through my contacts, looking for the Mediator number my neighbor had given me last month. Maria something, community conflict resolution specialist. The kind of person who was supposed to prevent exactly what had happened tonight. Another fight. More broken glass. Mrs. Chen crying. And this time, a gun. My building sat on the border. Literally. The invisible line between Santoro territory and Rossi territory ran right through our lobby. For years, we'd been neutral ground, Switzerland in the middle of a war we wanted no part of. But tonight, that neutrality had shattered along with our front door glass. Please. Emergency mediation needed. Address attached. People are going to get hurt. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The response came in 4 seconds. Stay where you are. I'm handling it. I stared at my phone. That wasn't Maria's voice. Maria used words like dialogue and peaceful resolution and finding common ground. This was cold. Sharp. A command dressed as a statement. My stomach tightened. I checked the contact name. K. Santoro. Not M. Rodriguez Mediator. K. Santoro. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. I'd texted Knox Santoro. The hammer. The man whose name people in my building whispered like a curse. The boss whose territory ended at my front steps. The man I'd just told there was an emergency at the border of his domain. My fingers flew across the screen. Sorry. Wrong person. Please ignore. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, too late. I dropped my phone like it had burned me. It clattered against my coffee table, screen still glowing with those 2 words. Too late. Too late for what? Another buzz. I didn't want to look. Couldn't stop myself. What emergency? My throat closed. I could lie. Say it was nothing. A mistake. A drunk text meant for someone else. But he'd have my number now. My message. The address I'd stupidly attached. And men like Knox Santoro didn't like mysteries in their territory. I typed with shaking hands. Building dispute. Already resolved. I apologize for bothering you. The 3 dots appeared. Stayed. Disappeared. Appeared again. Building address, 1847. Castellano Avenue, 6th floor, west side. Ice flooded my veins. He knew exactly where I was, where I lived, which apartment. But I hadn't given him that information. Grace Mitchell, the next message read. Age 31, social worker, moved in 14 months ago, loves alone. My breath came in short gasps. The room seemed to shrink around me. How did he know my name? My job? That I lived alone? Another message. You said people are going to get hurt. Then, were you one of them? The question caught me off guard. Not a threat. Almost. Concerned? No. Not concerned. Calculating. Men like him didn't worry about individual tenants. They worried about disruptions. Problems. Complications in their territory. I should lie. Should say I was fine. Should end this conversation before it went any further. Instead, I found myself typing the truth. Rossi nephew pulled a gun in the lobby tonight. Fight over territory lines. Building is neutral ground. Was neutral ground. Not anymore. 2 words that changed everything. Before I could respond, I heard it. The sound that would haunt my nightmares for weeks to come. Engines. Not 1. Not 2. Dozens of them. Growing louder. A symphony of mechanical thunder that made my windows vibrate. I ran to the window, nearly tripping over my coffee table in the dark. Black SUVs. Flooding my street, like a dark tide. They appeared from both directions, moving with military precision. 10, 15, 20. I lost count, as they surrounded my building, forming a perimeter that cut off every exit. Men poured out. Not in casual clothes, in tactical gear, dark, professional, armed. The streetlights gleamed off polished metal, weapons, communications devices, the kind of equipment you saw in movies about military operations, not on a residential street in the middle of the night. My phone buzzed in my hand, coming up, not a question, not a request, a promise. I backed away from the window, heart slamming against my ribs. The building's front buzzer hadn't worked in months, but I knew it wouldn't matter. The kind of man who could discover my name, my address, my life story in minutes, wouldn't be stopped by a broken buzzer, or a locked door, or me. Heavy footsteps echoed in the stairwell, measured, unhurried, the sound of someone who'd never had to rush because nothing and no one could outrun him. They stopped outside my door. Silence stretched. 3 heartbeats. 4. 5. No knock came. Instead, my phone lit up. Open the door, Grace. My name in his text felt intimate. Wrong. Like he'd reached through the phone and touched my face without permission. I should call the police. Should scream. Should do something other than stand here frozen like prey before a predator. But what would I tell them? That expensive cars were legally parked on my street? That a man I'd texted first was now outside my door? That I was afraid of consequences I'd created myself? The knock finally came. Soft. Controlled. Somehow more terrifying than a pounding fist would have been. My phone buzzed again. I'm not here to hurt you, but we need to talk about what happened in your lobby, and why you think calling a mediator would solve a problem that's been brewing for 20 years. 20 years. This wasn't about tonight's fight. This was about something deeper. Older. Darker. Another buzz. You have 2 choices. Open the door and we talk, or I leave, take my men, and tomorrow night when the Rosies come back, and they will come back, you'll face them alone. The threat was velvet-wrapped, but unmistakable. I found myself walking to the door. Not because I was brave, because I was a social worker who'd spent 10 years learning that the only way through fear was straight ahead. And because somewhere in those messages, buried under the control and the power and the implicit threats, was something that sounded almost like protection. My hand hovered over the deadbolt. One turn and everything would change. One turn and I'd come face to face with the man they called the Hammer. I opened the door. The hallway light cast him in silhouette, broad shoulders in a suit that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. The gleam of an expensive watch. The controlled stillness of a man who'd never needed to prove his strength because everyone already knew. Behind him stood another man. Larger, hands clasped, eyes that never stopped moving. Knox stepped forward just enough for my apartment light to catch his features. And God help me, he was beautiful. Sharp cheekbones. Strong jaw darkened by 5 o'clock shadow. Dark hair that looked like he'd run his hands through it recently. And eyes. Dark, intense. Calculating eyes that seemed to see straight through every wall I'd ever built. Grace Mitchell. His voice was a low rumble that sent warning signals racing down my spine. Not loud. Didn't need to be. The kind of voice that expected obedience without asking for it. I gripped the doorframe for support. How do you know my name? His mouth curved. Not quite a smile. Something more predatory. I know everything that happens in my territory, and as of tonight, your building is in my territory. We're neutral ground. He glanced past me into my apartment. Taking inventory. Assessing. Not anymore. Not after the Rosies sent armed men across the line. Not after you texted me for help. I didn't text you for... Didn't you? He tilted his head. You reached out to someone you thought could fix this. Stop the violence. Restore peace. His eyes locked on mine. You just didn't expect me to answer. The truth of his words silenced me. May I come in? He asked. Though it wasn't really a question. Unless you'd prefer to have this conversation where your neighbors might overhear. As if summoned, a door down the hall creaked open. Mrs. Chen, the retired nurse who sometimes brought me homemade dumplings, peeked out. Her eyes widened at the sight of 2 imposing men at my door. Everything all right, Grace? Her voice wavered, but held determination. The kind of woman who'd survived enough to recognize real danger when she saw it. Knox turned slightly, offering her a smile that transformed his entire demeanor. Suddenly charming, non-threatening. The mask of a civilized man. Just delivering some paperwork, Miss Mitchell requested. Sorry to disturb you so late, ma'am. Mrs. Chen's gaze darted between us. I forced a smile that felt like it might crack my face. It's fine, Mrs. Chen. Thank you. She nodded uncertainly before retreating. The click of her lock echoed down the hallway like a gunshot. Office paperwork, I said, flatly when we were alone again. Is that what you call 20 SUVs and an armed perimeter? Seemed better than your neighbor. Started a territorial dispute and now I'm here to collect. His voice was soft. Dangerous. Now, may I come in? I stepped back. What choice did I have? He moved past me into my small apartment, and the space immediately seemed to shrink. The air itself made way for him. His presence filled every corner, made my second-hand furniture look shabbier, my carefully maintained order look fragile. The bodyguard remained outside, positioning himself beside my door like a sentinel. Vincent will ensure we're not disturbed, Knox explained, noting my glance at the man now guarding my threshold. He surveyed my living room with an unreadable expression, the basket of unfolded laundry I'd been too exhausted to finish, the social work textbooks stacked on my coffee table, the single photograph on my bookshelf, me and my sister at her wedding 3 years ago, both of us laughing. Back when life felt simpler. His gaze lingered on that photo for a moment too long. Tell me what happened tonight, he said. Not a request. Everything. I wrapped my arms around myself. There's not much to tell. Mr. Rossi's nephew got into an argument with some of your people in the lobby. Something about territory lines. Who had the right to park where? It escalated. He pulled a gun. Everyone scattered. By the time I got downstairs, there was blood on the floor, and he was gone. And you thought a mediator could fix this? The way he said it made it sound naive, childish. I thought talking might prevent more violence. Is that so crazy? In my world? Yes. He moved to my window, looking down at the street where his men waited. Grace, do you know why your building has been neutral ground for 20 years? Because it sits on the border. Neither family claimed it. No. He turned back to me. Because my grandfather and Angelo Rossi's father made an agreement, a truce. They both lost sons in a fight over this exact block. Decided the cost was too high. Drew a line and agreed to respect it. So why? Because agreements die with the men who make them. His jaw tightened. My grandfather is dead. Rossi's father is dead. And their children, men like Angelo and me, we inherited their war without inheriting their wisdom. The weight of history pressed down on me. 20 years of peace maintained by dead men's promises. The fight tonight wasn't random, Knox continued. It was a test. Angelo is pushing boundaries. Seeing how far he can go before I push back. That gun in your lobby? That was him asking a question. What question? Whether I'm strong enough to hold what's mine. His eyes met mine. You texting me tonight? That was my answer. My stomach dropped. I've made things worse. No. He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. You forced a response that was already coming. Better now, on my terms, than later on his. The scent of him hit me. Cedar and leather and something expensive I couldn't name. Power distilled into a cologne. What happens now? I whispered. Now I make it clear that this building is under my protection. Anyone who threatens my territory threatens me. That includes you. I'm not your territory. You are now. The possessiveness in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, it awakened something I didn't want to examine. The moment you texted me, you chose a side, whether you meant to or not. I didn't choose anything. It was a mistake. There are no mistakes in my world, Grace. Only consequences. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then showed me the screen. A message to someone named Vincent. Station 2 men at building entrance. Permanent detail. No one from Rossi family gets past the lobby. You can't just... I already did. He pocketed the phone. By morning, everyone in this neighborhood will know this building is mine. The Rossis won't touch it. Won't touch you. You'll be safe. I was safe before. You were lucky. His voice went hard. There's a difference. Luck runs out. Protection doesn't. I wanted to argue, to tell him I didn't need his protection or his territory or his consequences. But the image of that gun in my lobby, the blood on the marble, Mrs. Chen's frightened face, it all came rushing back. Maybe I had been lucky. Maybe luck was running out. I should go, Knox said. moving toward the door. It's late. You need rest. That's it? You just announce I'm your territory and leave? He paused, hand on the doorknob, looked back at me with those dark, calculating eyes. Did you want something else, Grace? The question hung between us, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to unpack. I want to understand, I said finally. Why you came here personally. Why you're doing this. Why you care about one tenant in one building on the edge of your territory. Something flickered in his expression. There, and gone, so fast I almost missed it. Because I'm tired of inheriting other men's wars, he said quietly. And because you asked for help. No one ever just asks. Then he was gone, Vincent following him down the hallway. I locked the door behind them and stood there, listening to their footsteps fade. My phone buzzed one last time. Sleep well, Grace. You're safe now. I sank onto my couch, hands shaking with adrenaline. I'd been suppressing. Safe. The word felt foreign, dangerous. Like accepting his protection meant accepting everything that came with it. Outside, engines started. The convoy of black SUVs pulled away, melting into the night as smoothly as they'd arrived. But two remained, parked directly in front of my building. Guards inside, watching, protecting. I was safe now. I just wasn't sure what I'd traded for that safety. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. Knox Santoro, the hammer, standing in my apartment like he owned it, like he owned me. Maybe he did now. By dawn, word had spread through the building, like wildfire. I heard it in the stairwell as I left for work, whispered conversations that stopped when I passed. Eyes that tracked me with new weariness, new fear. Did you see the guards? Santoro men. Outside all night. Grace from 6B. Heard she called him. Invited him in. She's one of them now. I kept my head down and hurried to my car. The two guards Knox had posted, watched me go, but didn't interfere. Professional. Distant. Just doing their job. Which was apparently protecting me whether I wanted it or not. My office at Family Services was a welcome refuge. Normal, mundane, no armed men or territorial disputes or consequences for mistakes. Just case files and coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard and coworkers who complained about parking. I threw myself into work. 3 home visits, 2 court reports, a crisis call from a foster parent about a teenager who'd run away. Normal problems. The kind I knew how to solve. By lunch, I'd almost convinced myself last night had been a fever dream. That Knox Santoro hadn't really stood in my apartment, hadn't really claimed me as his territory, hadn't really looked at me with those dark eyes that saw too much. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. My stomach dropped. I knew who it was before I answered. Grace Mitchell. Not a question. A confirmation. Like he was checking I was who he expected. How did you get my work number? I told you. I know everything in my territory. That includes where you work. A pause. How was your morning? The casual question threw me. Fine. Why? No incidents? No one bothered you? No one ever bothers me. They will now. You're associated with me. That changes things. I closed my office door, lowering my voice. I didn't ask for this association. Nevertheless, you have it. Background noise on his end. Voices. The sound of an engine. I'm calling because we need to meet. Tonight. There's something you should see. I don't think. Not a request, Grace. His tone shifted. Still controlled but with an edge underneath. 7 p.m. I'll send a car. No. If we're meeting, I'll drive myself. Tell me where. Silence. I'd surprised him. You're not afraid of me, he said finally. Not a question. An observation. I'm terrified of you. But I'm more afraid of losing control of my life completely. So I'll meet you. On my terms. Where? Another pause. Then something that might have been respect colored his voice. There's a restaurant. Moretti's on 5th Street. Private room in the back. 7 p.m. I'll be there. Grace. He stopped me before I could hang up. Wear something nice. This is important. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, heart racing. What had I just agreed to? Moretti's was exactly what I expected. Old world elegance hiding new world power. Dim lighting, leather booths, The kind of place where deals were made over expensive wine and nothing was ever written down. The hostess took one look at me and smiled. Not friendly, knowing. Miss Mitchell, Mr. Santoro is expecting you. This way. She led me through the main dining room to a hallway in the back. Private rooms lined both sides, heavy doors muffling conversation. She stopped at the last one, knocked twice, then opened it without waiting for a response. Knox stood by a window overlooking the city. He'd changed since this morning. Dark suit, no tie, shirt open at the collar. The casual elegance of a man who didn't need to try. He turned when I entered, and something flickered in his eyes as he took me in. I'd worn the only nice dress I owned. Black, simple, appropriate for court dates and client meetings. Nothing special. But the way he looked at me made me feel like I'd shown up in a ball gown. Grace. He dismissed the hostess with a nod. The door closed, leaving us alone. Thank you for coming. You didn't give me much choice. You could have refused, but you didn't. He gestured to a table set for two. Please, sit. We have a lot to discuss. The room was smaller than I'd expected. Intimate. A single table, expertly set, wine already poured, the unmistakable feeling of a trap closing. But I sat anyway, because running now would accomplish nothing. Knox took the seat across from me, close enough that our knees almost touched under the table. I imagine you have questions. Several thousand. But let's start with why I'm here. Because things are escalating faster than I anticipated. He picked up his wine, swirled it, didn't drink. Angelo Rossi has made moves since last night. Testing my response to stationing guards at your building. He's pushing harder than I expected. Pushing how? 3 of my businesses were hit this afternoon. Vandalism. Nothing major, but enough to send a message. He's not backing down. My stomach sank. Because of me. Because of pride. Territory. The same reasons men have been killing each other since the beginning of time. He finally sipped his wine. You're just the excuse he's using. So what do you want from me? Your cooperation. And possibly your disappearance. The word hung in the air like a threat. Disappearance. I repeated slowly. Relocation. Temporary. A few weeks until this settles. He set down his glass. I have a property outside the city. Secure. Comfortable. You'd be safe there while I handle Angelo. You want me to hide? I want you alive. The bluntness of it startled me. No pretty words. No sugarcoating. Just raw truth. And if I refuse, then you stay at your apartment, surrounded by my guards, living in the middle of a war zone that's about to get very loud. His eyes met mine. Your neighbors will suffer for it. Mrs. Chen, the college students on 3, the single father with twin girls on 4, everyone in that building will become collateral damage. Guilt twisted in my gut. You're manipulating me. I'm telling you the truth. You asked for it. He leaned forward. Grace, I don't want you caught in this. Not because it would be bad for my reputation or inconvenient. Because you don't deserve it. I texted the wrong number. That's all I did. And sometimes that's all it takes. His voice softened. One wrong turn, one split-second decision, and everything changes. You know that. You're a social worker. You've seen it happen to the families you help. He was right. I'd watched good people's lives implode from single mistakes. A missed payment. A wrong friend. A moment of poor judgment that cascaded into disaster. How long? I asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. I have work. Clients who depend on me. Cases that can't wait. I'll arrange it. Medical leave. Family emergency. Whatever you need. He said it like it was simple. Like rearranging someone's entire life was as easy as making a phone call. Which for him, it probably was. And my apartment? My things? Everything will be packed and moved to my property. When this is over, everything goes back exactly as it was. Or, he hesitated. Or you start somewhere new. Fresh, if you prefer. Why would I need to start somewhere new? Because after this is over, everyone will know who you are, who protected you. Some people won't forget that, won't forgive it. His expression was unreadable. I'm giving you an out. If you want it. The weight of it crashed down on me. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't 2 weeks of inconvenience and then back to normal. This was my life. Fundamentally altered, because I'd texted the wrong number in the middle of the night. I need to think, I whispered. You have until tomorrow morning. Knox stood, pulling out his phone. Vincent will drive you home. Pack a bag tonight, just in case. And if I say no tomorrow? He looked at me for a long moment. Then I respect your choice and station twice as many guards at your building. And pray it's enough. I didn't pack that night. Didn't even go home right away. Instead, I drove aimlessly through the city, trying to clear my head, trying to figure out how my quiet, controlled life had spiraled so completely out of my grasp in less than 24 hours. It was past midnight when I finally climbed the stairs to my apartment. The guards Knox had posted were still there. Different faces, same professional distance. They nodded as I passed. I didn't acknowledge them. Inside, my apartment felt different. Smaller, like walls were closing in. I poured myself a glass of wine I couldn't afford and stood at my window, looking down at the street. At the guards protecting me. At the trap I'd built myself by trying to help. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number that I somehow knew was Knox. I know you're not sleeping. Neither am I. If you want to talk, I'm available. I should ignore it. Should set boundaries. Should maintain what little distance I had left. Instead, I found myself typing back. Why do you care? His response came immediately. Because you're the first person in 5 years who reached out asking for help, not demanding favors. Because you're caught in something that isn't your fault. Because 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Because I see you, Grace. Really see you. And I don't want to watch you disappear. My breath caught. The honesty in those words was unexpected, raw, real. I'm afraid, I typed. Of me? Of everything. Of choosing wrong. Of losing myself. Of becoming someone I don't recognize. Then don't choose. Not tonight. Just rest. Tomorrow. We'll figure it out together. Together. The word felt impossibly intimate. Okay, I replied. Tomorrow. I finished my wine and climbed into bed. Still fully dressed. Sleep came in fits and starts, interrupted by dreams of dark eyes and darker consequences. When dawn finally broke, I'd made my decision. Knox answered on the first ring. I'll go, I said without preamble. To your property, but on conditions. Name them. I need daily contact with my supervisor, updates on my cases, and if any of my clients have emergencies, I come back. Immediately. No arguments. Agreed. What else? I want to know what's happening. No lies. No protection through ignorance. If this situation changes, I need to know. Done. And when this is over, assuming we both survive, you let me go. Completely. No guards. No protection. No association. My life goes back to being mine. Silence stretched on the other end. I thought maybe I'd pushed too far. That's the one condition I can't promise. He said finally, I can remove the guards. Can stop the active protection. But Grace, after this, people will always connect you to me. That association doesn't just disappear because we want it to. The honesty hurt more than a lie would have. Then minimize it. Make it clear I was collateral. That I meant nothing. I can do that. His voice was careful, controlled. If that's what you want, it's what I want. All right, Vincent will be there in an hour. Pack for 2 weeks. Casual clothes. Everything else will be provided. Knox. I stopped him before he could hang up. This doesn't mean I trust you. I know. A pause. But maybe by the end, you will. The line went dead. Vincent arrived exactly 1 hour later. Professional. Efficient. He helped carry my 2 hastily packed bags down to the waiting car while I said goodbye to Mrs. Chen. You're leaving? She clutched my hands. Her eyes worried. Is this because of those men outside? Just for a little while. Family emergency. The lie tasted bitter. You be careful, Grace. Men like that. She glanced toward the guards. They don't let go easily. I knew. God. I knew. The drive took 40 minutes. Out of the city, into rolling hills and expensive privacy. The kind of wealth that didn't advertise itself but was impossible to miss. We turned onto a private drive, past a gate that opened automatically. The property beyond was stunning. Modern architecture blending seamlessly with natural landscape, glass and stone, and carefully maintained wilderness. Welcome to Sanctuary, Vincent said. The irony of the name wasn't lost on me. Knox waited at the entrance. Casual today, jeans and a dark Henley that made him look younger, more human, less dangerous, which was probably the most dangerous thing about him. Grace. He dismissed Vincent with a nod, then turned to me. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? Always. He picked up my bags like they weighed nothing. Come on, I'll show you around. The interior was exactly what I'd expected, and nothing like I'd imagined. High ceilings, minimalist design, but also warmth. Art on the walls that looked personal, not decorator chosen. Books that showed signs of being read. A space that was lived in, not just owned. Your room is upstairs, Knox said, leading me up a floating staircase. East wing, private bathroom, balcony with a view. My room is west wing, opposite side of the house. Trying to keep distance between us. Trying to keep you from killing me in my sleep. Fair point. We climbed the stairs in silence. His house was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Where were the sounds of family? Staff? Other people? You live here alone? I asked. Mostly, I have staff, but they're discreet. You won't see them unless you need something. Lonely way to live. He glanced back at me. Says the woman who lives in a one-bedroom apartment and works 60-hour weeks. I have an excuse. I'm helping people. So am I. Just in a different way. We reached a door. He pushed it open. The room was beautiful. Larger than my entire apartment. A king bed dressed in soft grays. French doors opening onto a balcony, overlooking gardens and woods beyond. And on the bed, laid out carefully, were clothes. My size. My style. Everything I might need for 2 weeks. How did you? I turned to Tim. I had someone catalog your preferences from your apartment. Your closet. Your style. He set my bags down. I wanted you comfortable. The thoughtfulness of it should have made me feel cared for. Instead, it reminded me how thoroughly he'd invaded my life. How completely he'd taken control. This is a lot, I whispered. I know. He moved toward the door. Take some time. Settle in. There's an intercom if you need anything. Or you can text me. Knox. I stopped him. He turned. Why are you doing this? Really? He looked at me for a long moment. Because 14 years ago, I learned what happens when you don't protect the people who matter. I learned what it feels like to lose everything because you weren't strong enough, fast enough, ruthless enough. His voice was flat, empty. I won't make that mistake again. Then he was gone. I stood in the beautiful room, in this gilded cage, and wondered what I'd gotten myself into, and if I'd ever find my way out. I avoided Knox for the first 2 days. It wasn't hard. The house was massive, and he seemed to respect my need for space. I caught glimpses of him sometimes, through windows as he walked the grounds. In his study, visible through an open door, surrounded by papers and phones, and the evidence of an empire. I didn't want to understand. He had staff, but they were invisible. Meals appeared. Clothes were laundered. The house maintained itself like magic. By the 3rd day, I was going stir-crazy. I found him in the garden, early morning, drinking coffee and reading something on his phone. He looked up when I approached, surprise flickering across his features. Grace, good morning. Is it? I sat on the bench across from him uninvited. I wouldn't know. All mornings look the same here. You're bored. I'm trapped. You're safe. He set down his phone, giving me his full attention. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, they feel pretty similar. He studied me for a long moment. What do you need? Work. Purpose. Something other than wandering around this beautiful prison counting the hours until I can leave. I can arrange for your case files to be sent here. You could do remote consultations. Would that help? It would. But accepting felt like accepting everything. Settling in. Making this temporary situation feel permanent. Yes, I said anyway. Because staying sane mattered more than pride. Done. I'll have everything set up by this afternoon. He paused. There's something else I wanted to show you. If you're interested. What? Come with me. He led me through the gardens to a path I hadn't noticed before. It wound through the trees, eventually opening onto a clearing where 3 headstones stood in careful arrangement. My family, Knox said quietly. My mother, my father, my sister. I looked at the dates carved into stone. His sister had been only 8 years old. What happened? I asked, though part of me already knew. A rival family. 20 years ago, they wanted to send a message to my grandfather. He crouched down, touching his sister's headstone. They sent it, loud and clear. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be educated. He stood, looking at me. You want to know why I don't believe in peace? Why I think mediation and dialogue are naive? This is why. My mother tried your way. She begged them to talk, to negotiate, to find a peaceful solution. He walked closer to me. They shot her in front of my sister. Then they shot my sister. Then they burned our house down with my father inside. I was 14. I survived because I wasn't home. My chest tightened. Knox, you know what I learned that day, Grace? I learned that good people die while bad people talk about peace. I learned that mercy is weakness, that compassion gets you killed. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. I learned that the only way to protect anyone is to be stronger, more ruthless, more willing to do whatever it takes than everyone else. That's not living. That's surviving. Survival is living. Everything else is a fantasy. I walked to his sister's grave, read her name. Sophia, 8 years old. Gone. I'm sorry this happened to you, I said softly. I'm sorry you lost them. I'm sorry the world taught you that violence is the only answer. I looked up at him. But that doesn't make it true. It kept me alive. Did it? Or did it just keep you breathing? I stood, facing him fully, because there's a difference between being alive and actually living. Philosophy. He waved it away. Pretty words that mean nothing in the real world. The real world is whatever we make it. I stepped closer to him. You chose this path because of trauma. Because you were hurt. Because you lost everything. I understand that. But you're letting that pain define everything. You're letting them win. His jaw clenched. They didn't win. They're dead. I killed them. Every single one. And did it bring them back? I gestured to the graves. Did it heal you? Did it make the pain stop? Silence. You're still that 14-year-old boy, I said quietly. Still trying to protect a family that's already gone. Still fighting a war that's already over. Still refusing to trust anyone. Because you think trust equals death. Trust does equal death. No. Trust equals risk. I touched his arm. He flinched, but didn't pull away. And yes, sometimes that risk ends in pain. But sometimes it ends in connection. In love. In actually living. Instead of just surviving. He stared at my hand on his arm. Like he couldn't quite believe it was there. You're going to get yourself killed, he said finally, voice rough with something I couldn't name. Maybe, but I'd rather die trying to make things better than live in a world where I accept that they can't be. He reached up, touched my face. His hand was warm, calloused, surprisingly gentle. You're either the bravest person I've ever met, or the most foolish. Can't I be both? Almost a smile. Yeah, you can be both. We stood there, among the graves, among the ghosts of his past. And for the first time, I saw him not as a threat, but as a person, broken, hurting, desperately trying to control everything because he'd lost control once, and it had destroyed him. I understood him now. And understanding was dangerous, because understanding led to empathy, and empathy led to caring. And caring led to exactly the kind of vulnerability we were both trying to avoid. We should go back, he said finally, stepping away, breaking the moment. Okay. The walk back was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet. Not hostile, not tense, just quiet. After that day, things shifted. Knox stopped avoiding me. I stopped avoiding him. We fell into a routine. Morning coffee in the garden. Afternoons where I worked on my cases while he handled his business. Evenings where we'd somehow end up in the same room, reading or watching something or just existing in companionable silence. It was almost comfortable, which terrified me more than the danger ever had. You're doing it again, Knox said one evening. We were in his study, him at his desk, me curled up in the leather chair by the window with case files. I looked up. Doing what? That thing where you chew your bottom lip when you're thinking. You've been staring at that same page for 10 minutes. I set the file down. It's a difficult case. Single mother, 3 kids, abusive ex who keeps finding her no matter how many times she moves. Restraining order? He ignores it. Police can't do anything until he actually hurts her. By then, it might be too late. Knox was quiet for a moment. Then, give me his name. Why? Because I can do what the police can't. The offer hung in the air. Tempting. Dangerous. Everything I stood against. No, I said firmly. I don't solve problems with violence. Even when violence is the only thing that works. Especially then. Because the moment I compromise that principle, I become someone I don't recognize. I met his eyes. I won't ask you to hurt someone for me, Knox. No matter how much they might deserve it. Something flickered in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or something deeper. You're more stubborn than I gave you credit for. I'm a social worker. Stubborn is in the job description. He smiled. Actually smiled. The expression transformed his face, made him look younger, less dangerous, almost handsome. No, not almost. Definitely handsome. Damn it. Tell me something, he said, leaning back in his chair. Why social work? What made you choose a job where you're constantly fighting impossible battles for people who can't always be saved? I thought about that. Because someone fought for me once. When I was 16, my father left, just gone one day. My mother fell apart, started drinking. We were going to lose the house. I was going to end up in foster care. But you didn't. Because a social worker named Patricia Chen, no relation to my neighbor, refused to give up on us. She found my mother treatment. Found us housing assistance. Found me a mentor who kept me in school. I smiled at the memory. She saw me, really saw me, and decided I was worth fighting for. So now you do the same for others. I try to. Doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. And those times make everything else worth it. Knox studied me for a long moment. You see the good in people, even when they don't deserve it. Everyone deserves it. Some just need more help seeing it in themselves. Do I deserve it? The question caught me off guard. The vulnerability in his voice even more so. I don't know yet, I said honestly, but I'm willing to find out. Days blurred into a week. Then 2. Knox received daily updates on the situation with Angelo Rossi. Tensions were high but controlled. No major incidents. No bodies. Just the slow chess game of territorial disputes and power plays. Another few days, he told me one morning. Angelo is making overtures about a meeting. A real one. Face to face. To discuss boundaries. That's good, right? Talking instead of fighting? Maybe. Or maybe it's a trap. He sipped his coffee. Either way, I need to take the meeting. See what he wants. When? Tomorrow night. Something cold settled in my stomach. That's dangerous. Everything I do is dangerous. That's the life I chose. He set down his cup. Or that chose me. Depending on how you look at it, be careful. Always am. He paused. Grace, if something happens, nothing's going to happen. If something happens, he continued, overriding my protest. Vincent has instructions. He'll get you somewhere safe. New identity, new city, everything we discussed. I don't want to talk about this. We have to. He reached across the small table, took my hand. The touch was electric. I need to know you'll be safe, no matter what. I looked at our joined hands. When had this happened? When had I started caring whether he lived or died? When had his safety started mattering more than my freedom? Nothing's going to happen, I repeated. But this time, it sounded like a prayer. He left the next evening at 7, dressed in a dark suit, looking every inch the powerful, dangerous man I'd first met at my door. The transformation was complete. The man who'd shown me his family's graves, who'd smiled at my stubbornness, who'd held my hand that morning, he was gone. The hammer had returned. Stay inside, he instructed. Vincent is outside. If anything feels wrong, tell him immediately. You're coming back, I said. Not a question. A demand. I'm coming back. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Turned. Grace. Yeah? He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, cupped my face in his hands, and kissed me. It was brief, fierce, desperate. A promise, and a goodbye wrapped into one. Then he was gone. I stood there, fingers touching my lips, heart racing. What the hell had just happened? Hours passed like years. I tried to work, couldn't focus. Tried to read. The words swam. Tried to sleep. Impossible. I paced the house like a caged animal, phone clutched in my hand, waiting for updates that didn't come. At midnight, my phone finally buzzed. Not Knox. Vincent. Miss Mitchell. There's been a situation. The words. Every person dreads. My blood went cold. What situation? Is Knox? He's alive. But there's been an incident at the meeting. Mr. Santoro asked me to bring you somewhere. Now. Where? He'll explain when we arrive. Please, get in the car. Every instinct screamed this was a trap. A trick. Something wrong. But the fear in Vincent's voice was real. And if Knox was in trouble, I grabbed my jacket and ran. Vincent drove like the devil was chasing us. Through the city, into the warehouse district. Finally screeching to a stop in front of a building that looked abandoned but clearly wasn't. Armed men stood guard outside. They parted as Vincent led me through. Inside was chaos barely controlled. Men shouting, in Italian, blood on the concrete floor, the acrid smell of gunpowder. And in the center of it all, Knox. He was alive, standing. But his shirt was torn, blood staining the white fabric. A cut above his eye, bruises forming on his jaw. He looked up when I entered. Relief and something else. Something raw and vulnerable flashed across his face. Grace. Thank God. He moved toward me, limping slightly. What happened? I was already assessing his injuries. Social worker mode, overriding everything else. You need a hospital. Can't. Too many questions. He caught my hands. It was a trap. Angelo didn't want to talk. He wanted me dead. My heart stuttered. But you're alive. Barely. He had 10 men. I had 5. His grip tightened. But he made a mistake. What mistake? He brought someone with him. A civilian. Thought it would give him leverage. Insurance against me reacting. Knox's expression was grim. A woman. Pregnant. Terrified. Oh no. I couldn't risk her getting hurt, he continued. Had to negotiate. Had to walk away without resolving anything. Angelo knows. I won't put innocence at risk. He'll use it against me again. You did the right thing, I said firmly. Protecting her was the right choice. Was it? Because now Angelo thinks I'm weak. He'll push harder. More aggressive. And next time, he might not bring insurance. Next time, people I care about could get hurt. The way he said it. The way he looked at me. The implication was crystal clear. You need to leave, I said, suddenly. Not him. Me. I need to leave. Right now. Tonight. Before he figures out I matter to you. He already knows. Knox's voice was flat. That's why I brought you here. Why I'm telling you this. Because you need to understand what's coming. What's coming? War. Real war. Not the chess game we've been playing. Angelo crossed a line tonight. Tried to kill me on neutral ground during a negotiated meeting. That can't stand. What are you going to do? His expression was answer enough. No. I stepped back. Knox. No. There has to be another way. Mediation. A real truce. Something that doesn't end in more violence. There is no other way. Not anymore. There's always another way. My voice rose. That's what you don't understand. Violence doesn't end violence. It just creates more. An endless cycle where everyone loses. And peace doesn't work when the other side refuses to honor it. He was shouting now too. I tried it your way, Grace. I went to that meeting. I negotiated. I protected an innocent woman. And Angelo still tried to kill me. So you'll kill him instead? Yes. The word echoed in the warehouse. Final. Absolute. I stared at him. At this man I'd started to care about. Started to trust. Started to believe might be capable of change. And saw that I'd been wrong. Then I can't be part of this, I whispered. I can't watch you become the thing you hate. Can't be complicit in more death. Grace! Take me back to my apartment. Tonight. Now. I'm done. If you go back, you're not safe. Angela will. Then I'll figure it out. I've been taking care of myself long before you showed up at my door. I'll go somewhere else. New city, like you promised. Just let me go. Pain flashed across his face. You're choosing to leave. You're choosing violence. We both made our choice. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded once. Vincent, take her home, pack her things, get her on the first flight out. New identity, everything we discussed. Knox. I tried. One last attempt. Go, Grace. Before I change my mind and keep you here, where you're safe, where I can protect you, whether you want it or not. The threat should have terrified me. Instead, it broke my heart, because I saw it for what it was. Love twisted by fear, protection warped by control. Everything I'd been afraid of from the beginning. I left without another word. Vincent drove me back to the property in silence, helped me pack in silence, handed me an envelope containing a new identity, money, instructions in silence. He cares about you, Vincent said finally as we pulled up to my apartment building. Dawn was just breaking. More than he should. More than is safe. I know. He won't stop protecting you. Even if you leave. Even if you disappear. He'll always make sure you're safe. I know that too. I got out of the car. My apartment building looked exactly the same. Like the past 2 weeks had never happened. Like I'd never texted the wrong number. Never met Knox Santoro. Never started falling for a man who solved problems with violence. The guards were gone from the entrance. Knox had kept his word about that. At least, I climbed the stairs to my apartment. Unlocked the door. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. I was home. I was safe. I was alone. And I'd never felt more lost in my life. 3 days passed. I went back to work. Back to my cases. Back to fighting impossible battles for people who couldn't always be saved. Back to normal. Except nothing felt normal anymore. I jumped at sudden noises. Checked over my shoulder constantly. Saw black SUVs everywhere. Even when they weren't there. And I thought about him constantly. About Knox. About the man who'd shown me his sister's grave. Who'd kissed me like it might be the last time. Who'd chosen violence over peace because he didn't know any other way. On the 4th day, Mrs. Chen knocked on my door. Grace, honey, there's someone here to see you. Says it's important. My heart leaped. Knox. It had to be Knox. But it wasn't. The man waiting in my living room was older, 60s, well-dressed, with cold eyes that assessed me like a threat. Miss Mitchell, my name is Angelo Rossi. Every muscle in my body tensed. Get out of my apartment. In a moment. First, we need to talk about Knox Santoro. I have nothing to say about him. No? That's not what I hear. He moved to my window. Casual, confident. I hear you spent 2 weeks at his property. That he's quite protective of you. That he walked away from killing me because he didn't want to risk a pregnant woman getting hurt. Because you taught him compassion. I didn't teach him anything. Didn't you? Angelo turned back to me. Knox Santoro doesn't negotiate. Doesn't show mercy. Doesn't care about collateral damage. But suddenly, after meeting you, he does. That's interesting. Useful, even. If you're here to threaten me, I'm here to make you an offer. He pulled out a business card, set it on my coffee table. Knox is planning something. Something that will start a war neither of our families can afford. People will die. Innocent people. People like that pregnant woman he protected. What does this have to do with me? Because you're the only person who can stop him. The only person he might actually listen to. Angelo moved toward the door. Think about it. If you really believe in peace, in dialogue, in solving problems, without violence, prove it. Stop him before it's too late. Then he was gone. I stared at the business card. A phone number, nothing else. One call, and I could stop Knox. Could prevent the war Angelo was predicting. Could save lives. All I had to do was betray the man I'd started falling for. I didn't sleep that night either. Didn't call the number. Didn't destroy the card. Just stared at it like it might spontaneously combust and solve my problem for me. At 3 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. But I knew. Grace. Knox's voice. Rough. Tired. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I needed to know you're safe. I'm fine. Angelo came to see you. Not a question. He knew, of course he knew. How did... I told you. I protect what's mine. even when you don't want me to. A pause. What did he offer you? How do you know he offered anything? Because that's what he does. Finds vulnerabilities, exploits them. What did he promise you? I could lie. Should lie. But I was tired of lies. He said, "You're planning something. That it'll start a war. That I'm the only one who can stop you." Silence on the other end. "He's right," Knox said finally. "About all of it." My breath caught. "When?" "Tomorrow night. I'm hitting his primary operation, taking out his supply lines, forcing him to the negotiating table through strength, not diplomacy. That's not negotiation. That's war. It's the only language he understands. And if innocent people get hurt, they won't. I'll make sure of it. You can't promise that. No one can." I stood, pacing my small apartment. "Knox, please. Don't do this. There has to be another way. Name it. Let me mediate. Me and Angelo. Face to face. We'll find terms you can both live with. He tried to kill me, Grace. And you're about to destroy his empire. Which makes you even. Start from there. Build something different. You're naive. I'm optimistic. There's a difference." I took a breath. "Give me one chance. 24 hours. Let me try. If I fail, you do whatever you were planning anyway." The silence stretched so long, I thought he'd hung up. "One chance," he said finally. 24 hours. But Grace. "Yeah, if this goes wrong, if Angelo hurts you, there won't be anything left of him to negotiate with." "I know. And Grace? Thank you. For not giving up on me. Even when I've given you every reason to." The line went dead. I stared at Angelo's business card, made my decision, and dialed. The meeting was set for the next evening. Neutral ground. A cafe Knox and Angelo both agreed to. Public enough to discourage violence. Private enough to talk honestly. I spent the day preparing, researching conflict resolution strategies, reviewing everything I knew about territorial disputes, praying I wasn't about to get myself killed. Vincent picked me up at 6. Drove me to the cafe in silence. Knox was already there, waiting in a back room. He looked exhausted. Haunted. "You didn't have to do this," he said when I entered. "Yes, I did." I sat across from him. "Because I see you, Knox. The real you. The man who protected a pregnant stranger, who showed me his family's graves, who kisses like the world is ending." Something flickered in his eyes. "Grace, I'm not done. I see you, and I believe you're capable of more than violence, more than this endless war. I believe you can choose differently. And if you're wrong, then at least I try." Angelo arrived at 7 exactly. Professional, controlled, flanked by 2 men who stayed outside the room. "Miss Mitchell. Mr. Santoro." He sat, spreading his hands. "Let's talk." For the next 3 hours, we talked. About boundaries. About respect. About the cost of war versus the cost of peace. It was brutal. Tense. Nearly fell apart a dozen times. But slowly, painfully, we found common ground. A new agreement. New boundaries. Overseen by a neutral third party. Me. Not perfect. Not permanent. But a start. By 10 p.m., we had the framework of a truce. "This could work," Angelo said finally, looking as surprised as I felt. "If we both honor it, we will." Knox extended his hand. "You have my word." They shook. The most dangerous handshake I'd ever witnessed. After Angelo left, Knox turned to me. "You did it. We did it. You chose to come. To try. That matters. I did it for you." "No. You did it for you. For that 14-year-old boy who lost everything. Who deserves a chance to live instead of just survive." He pulled me close, rested his forehead against mine. "Stay. Don't disappear. Don't run. Just stay. I'm a social worker. You're a mobster. This doesn't work in the real world. Then we'll make a new world where it does work." He pulled back to look at me. "I can't promise. I'll always choose dialogue over violence. Can't promise I'll be the man you want me to be. But I can promise I'll try. For you. For us." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you, Grace Mitchell. And I want to see if we can build something that doesn't end in destruction." I should have said no. Should have walked away. Should have chosen safety over risk. Instead, I kissed him. Deep, desperate, full of promise and possibility. I love you too, I whispered against his lips. You impossible, controlling, dangerous man. He smiled. Actually smiled. Does this mean you'll stay? On my terms. I'm not moving to your property, not giving up my job, not disappearing into your world. What then? We date. Like normal people. You take me to dinner. I meet your friends. We figure out if this thing between us is real or just trauma bonding. And if it's real, then we figure out the rest. Together. Together, he repeated, like testing the word. I like the sound of that. Outside, the city continued. Cars passing. People living. The world moving forward. And for the first time since I'd texted the wrong number, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Because I wasn't facing it alone. We were facing it together. Two broken people choosing to build something whole. Not perfect. Not easy. But real. And maybe that was enough. 3 months later, the cafe had become our place. Not Moretti's with its private rooms and hidden power. This place, the one where Knox and Angelo had brokered their fragile peace. Where everything had changed. I waited at our usual table, reviewing case notes on my laptop. The bell above the door chimed. Knox. Right on time. He'd gotten better about that. About showing up when he said he would. About keeping promises that didn't involve violence. He kissed my temple before sitting. How was your day? Long. 3 home visits. 2 court appearances. The usual. I closed my laptop. Yours. Also long. Angelo's been pushing boundaries again. Nothing major. Just testing. And I called him. We talked it out. Adjusted some terms. Crisis averted. He took my hand across the table. No bloodshed required. Pride bloomed in my chest. Look at you. Using your words. Don't get used to it. Sometimes force is still necessary. I know, but sometimes it's not. That's growth. We ordered coffee. Talked about mundane things. His mother visiting next week. My sister's baby shower. Normal couple problems. It wasn't perfect. We still fought, still clashed, still struggled with the fundamental difference in how we saw the world. But we were trying. And sometimes, trying was enough. I have something for you, Knox said suddenly. He pulled out a key. Before you panic, it's not what you think. What is it? A space. Small office. Downtown. I've been renovating it. He set the key on the table between us. For your mediation practice. I stared at the key. What mediation practice? The one you're going to start. Officially. You've been doing it unofficially for months now. Every time Angelo and I have a dispute, we call you. Every time one of my men has a problem, they come to you. He smiled. You've basically become the unofficial mediator for the entire organization. Might as well make it official. Knox, I can't. You can. And you should. Grace, you have a gift. For seeing both sides. For finding solutions that don't involve violence. The city needs that. I need that. This is too much. It's not enough. But it's a start. He squeezed my hand. Say yes. Build something that's completely yours. That has nothing to do with me, except that I support it. I looked at the key. At this man who'd shown up at my door 6 months ago and changed everything. Who'd learned to choose dialogue over violence. Who'd chosen me. Okay, I said. Finally. Yes. His smile was brilliant. Genuine. The smile of a man who was learning to live instead of just survive. There's one condition, I added. This office? It's neutral ground, like my building was supposed to be. No territory lines. No families. Just a place where people can come to talk. Done. And you can't intimidate my clients. I would never. Knox. Fine. I'll try not to intimidate your clients. Better. We finished our coffee. Walked out into the evening. His arm around my shoulders. Mine around his waist. 2 people from different worlds. Finding a way to exist in the same space. Not perfect. Not easy. But real. The text that had started everything sat in my phone. Saved. A reminder of how one mistake could change everything. How sometimes the wrong number was exactly the right one. How peace wasn't about avoiding conflict. It was about having the courage to face it. Together. Knox's phone buzzed. He checked it. Frowned. Problem? Maybe. Angelo wants to meet tomorrow. Says it's important. Want me to come? He looked at me. Really looked at me. Yeah, I do. Then I'll be there. We walked home through the city we were both trying to protect. Him through strength. Me through compassion. Together through something that looked like hope. It wasn't the life I'd planned. Wasn't the story I'd thought I'd live. But it was mine. Ours. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Because whatever it was, we'd face it together. Two broken people choosing love over fear, peace over war, each other over everything. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.